Do you love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed? Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your virtual Broadway tour.
By 1927, our favorite architect, Herbert J. Krapp, was in high demand. Not only was he the go-to theater architect for the Schubert Brothers and the Chenin Brothers, but another pair soon sought him out as well. Well, this week's theater, the Neil Simon, currently features the famous playwright's name in lights. It began its life in 1927 with a different name, the Alvin. If you're like me, the name Alvin probably conjures up famous modern dancer Alvin Ailey, or perhaps Alvin and the Chipmunks? But neither of these, especially the latter, are the original namesake. In fact, the original marquee bulbs were actually an amalgamation of the two original owners, Alex Ahrens, Al, and Vinton Friedli, Vin. The pair had chalked up many musical successes and finally set down roots with their own theater, complete with 3 floors of offices atop. They enlisted the help of a pair of siblings, the Gershwin Brothers, to open their theater on November 22nd with Funny Face, featuring another pair of siblings, Fred and Adele Astaire. The opening was a success and paved the way for many more musical hits in the decades that followed. Beyond the opening production of Funny Face, George and Ira Gershwin would settle in at the Alvin a few more times over the next handful of years. While their musical Treasure Girl, starring Gertrude Lawrence, flopped in 1928 at the Alvin, they would redeem themselves in 1930 with their rollicking musical hit, Girl Crazy. Most of the cast for the show was set, except for the character of Kate, a secondary role with a featured song penned by the brothers called I Got Rhythm. Producers Ahrens and Friedli scoured nightclubs for a performer with a voice big enough to sing the tune. One night, at a club mere blocks from their theater, now an Applebee's, they encountered a woman with a booming voice who they thought would be perfect for the show. The only problem? They said her name was too long for any marquee. Heeding their advice, she shortened her name from Zimmerman to simply Merman. At the age of 22, Ethel Merman made her Broadway debut and became an overnight sensation. And as for the show, well, Girl Crazy would come roaring back to life in 1992, this time with a revised book and score and a new title, Crazy for You. The Alvin continued to provide great musical vehicles for Ethel Merman, later paired with tunesmith Cole Porter instead of the Gershwin Brothers. She starred in Porter's Anything Goes in 1933, Red, Hot and Blue in 1936, and Something for the Boys in 1943. From the moment contracts were issued, Red, Hot and Blue was off to a rocky start. Star performers will often fight for top billing, usually seeking to have their name above the title of a musical, as in Patti LuPone in Gypsy. On Broadway, if an above-the-title performer is out of the show, this is the only instance an audience member can get a refund before the curtain rises. If there are multiple names above the title, the most coveted spot is the top left. So, with Ethel Merman, Jimmy Durante, and Bob Hope set to star above the title in Red, Hot and Blue, heated negotiations ensued. In the history of Broadway, it's the only time a true compromise was made. Ethel Merman and Jimmy Durante's names were crossed, with poor Bob Hope stuck underneath. Following in the footsteps of celebrated songwriters like Cole Porter and the Gershwin Brothers, another gifted writer would have a few hits at the Alvin beginning in 1962, Stephen Sondheim. On the heels of his successes as the witty, smart lyricist for West Side Story and Gypsy, Sondheim was looking to add Broadway composer to his resume as well. On May 8, 1962, he would do just that with his A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, starring Zero Mostel. With Hal Prince as producer and George Abbott as the director at the helm, the show managed to run for over 900 performances. Sondheim and Prince would again join forces at the Alvin in 1970 for their groundbreaking Company. Straying from the typical plot-driven musical, they led with the idea of marriage and relationships to create a new genre of concept musicals. But ultimately, within the same Herbert J. Crabb walls of the Alvin, the concept of their 1981 musical, Merrily We Roll Along, would ultimately be their demise. Based on a 1934 Kaufman and Hart play, the show unfolds in reverse order, beginning with jaded adults and regressing to a finale featuring their younger selves full of promise. Unfortunately, the audience was confused most of the time, and the show only ran for a handful of weeks before closing, leading to the end of the Prince-Sondheim working relationship on Broadway as well. You guys, happy Saturday. Can you believe it's already Saturday again? I guess how it works is Friday happens and then Saturday comes after. It happens every week. I don't know why I'm surprised every week, but here we are. This one feels especially, especially hopeful. It feels like we're in between snowstorms. We're about to get another 6 inches here in New York City tomorrow, but for whatever reason, it's sunny, and it's been sunny. It was really sunny yesterday. I didn't even have to wear a big jacket. Spring is in the air. I don't know. I'm feeling hopeful. Here we are on this beautiful Saturday, as we are here every Saturday for these 41 weeks of our lives with our Saturday Noon on Broadway series as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. Every week, we're coming to you live with someone who's worked at the theater we're featuring that week. And this week, we are joined by the very talented, the glorious voiced, the nicest human you've ever met, the Nick Cartell from Jesus Christ Superstar and Scandalous at the Neil Simon Theater. He did both shows there, not once, but twice. It's basically, we're going to call it his home away from home. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close walking tours here in New York City. For the last 10 years, my green team and my green team comprised of actors and stage managers, we have been your windows and your eyes to the world of our insane theatrical lives, the history, the ghost stories, the fun facts of our 41 Broadway theaters. And as I say, we tell you all the things you didn't know that you really want to know about our 41 Broadway theaters. We opened a gift shop in the middle of Times Square about a year and a half ago. So that gift shop is my 60 square foot little green box of life with a 6 foot tall Broadway sign next to it of light bulbs and marquee letters. All of that is closed, but we're planning our reopening now. So hopefully we're thinking maybe summer is when all of that will finally be lit up. And then, I don't know, like the rest of our lives, we'll see how it goes. All of our tours, exterior tours, the 5 that we offer are all available, masked and in person, socially distanced. The only tour that we don't currently have available is our Hudson Up Close tour, which is inside Broadway's oldest theater, the Hudson. The theater's closed. You know this. Here we are. Virtual tours is also a thing we're doing. I'm working on a brand new virtual tour called Broadway Bar Crawl, which was just released. I haven't even officially announced it. You're one of the first people to hear. But that's all the theatrical restaurants that have made up the other side of our Broadway adjacent drinking and eating theatrical lives. So check out BroadwayUpClose.com for information on all of that I just word vomited to you. March 12th, 2020. It's insane to me that we're coming up on a 1-year anniversary of the day that everything shut down and our lives all fell apart. What I realized is I was missing mainly the connection of tour goers, of theater goers, of people on our tours, seeing friends in the neighborhood on the way to auditions, on the way to their shows. And I thought, okay, if we're doing this virtual thing, let's do it for 41 weeks. We'll do 1 theater a week. I'm insane. Here we are. We've made it to week 34, the Neil Simon. I hope you've all enjoyed the history, the fun facts, all the insanity of Ethel Merman's debut and over the top billing, all of the insanity this week. I hope you enjoyed it. How's today going to work? For today's series, we'll learn all about Nick's theatrical journey, his time working on Jesus Christ Superstar and Scandalous at the Neil Simon. If you have any questions for him or me along the way, drop them in the comments. And if you're watching live, which some of you are, which I love, comment where you're watching us from this morning so we can see where our stories are going. Are you ready? Get ready. This is going to be great. He's a dream. And without further ado, join me in welcoming Broadway's Nick Cartell. Yeah. Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Hey, man.
My love, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm so good. It's like the most loaded of loaded questions to say, how are you in a global pandemic?
I know.
34 weeks into our lives and however many weeks into this, I think it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're resilient. We're resilient.
Yeah, one day.
We're resilient.
Correct. There's never been more. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, and all of that.
That is true.
I feel like we have so much to talk about because you have done so much, and you are a glorious human. But for those who don't know and aren't gifted and lucky enough to know you and call you a close friend, will you tell us where you grew up? Will you tell us when you first got exposed to theater, when you first started like maybe figuring out Broadway or theater was a thing you could do professionally, and essentially give us like the mini bio version of Nick Cartell prior to setting your suitcases down in New York City?
Okay. I grew up in Arizona, in Phoenix, Scottsdale. And I was exposed to theater pretty much. I started singing in choirs growing up. Like I was in the Phoenix Boys Choir, and then I joined church choirs. And then I was in 5th grade, and I did an opera, Mall and the Night Visitors, at my church in conjunction with my church. And that was like my first kind of exposure to doing something on stage that wasn't a talent show.
Okay.
But I always loved performing for family and friends, and I'd put on little shows in my living room and stuff like that. Cut to a couple years later, there was a youth theater called Valley Youth Theater that is still around in Arizona, and they were holding auditions for a show called Pinocchio, and I went and I auditioned, and I got the acting bug, and I've been doing it ever since. So, and it was really in like high school and doing community theater that I was like, I can do this, because touring shows would come through Gamage Auditorium in Tempe at Arizona State. And that's where my first exposures to kind of theater, big Broadway productions was there. Sure. That's where I was like, ooh, that's really what I want to do. That's really what I want to do. And so seeing Phantom of the Opera live and seeing, Beauty and the Beast and just all the shows that would come in was like, yeah, this is something I think I really want to do. So for my... for high school graduation, I came to New York for the first time.
Crazy.
And that was like just a crazy experience just to come and just to be part, to see it. Cause I'd never been to New York. I'd only seen it on television shows and watching the Tony Awards. And here I was and seeing shows for the first time. And what
was the first Broadway
back and
was it that trip?
Yes. And the first Broadway show that I saw was Victor Victoria.
Sure. Marriott Marquis. All right.
Yep. And it was the week after Julie Andrews left.
Great. So you've nailed it. You really
nailed it.
Great.
I think it was Raquel. I think it was Raquel Welch.
Yeah, I think that's
in at that point. I think she was the first replacement. So anyway, but I got to see her. I mean, we saw Miss Saigon that trip at the Broadway Theater. We saw what else did we see? The King and I. Yeah. And I believe that Faith Prince was in the role at that point. So, just, it was great. And it was just being in the city. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And actually after seeing Miss Saigon, I asked the guy that was playing Chris, hey, what do I need to do this for a career? Like, what do I need to do? And he said, do you listen to soundtracks? And I said, all the time. He goes, yeah, keep doing that. Keep listening to soundtracks. That's the music that people are creating. That's the sound that they want to hear. Sing along with them, but figure out your own way to sing it, your own sound.
I love that.
And so I've taken that advice and I've given that advice a lot.
Yeah. And vocally, so you start in this choir world before Pinocchio, before you're putting on your like wooden outfit or whatever. Do you always, like, the moment you start choir, they're like, oh, your voice is incredible, this is going to be so easy? Was it you had to navigate that? Talk to me about what the vocal aspect of it.
The vocal aspect of it was, so the first kind of true choir experience that I had was joining the Phoenix Boys Choir. So it's and I was really taught how to sing in that experience. And right? So I was trained. I was 7 or 8.
Oh, great.
So I was like trained as a boy soprano to sing. Wow. And it gave me, they taught you how to breathe correctly. They taught you how to, just read little music here and there. So it really gave me kind of like a great foundation that then I was able to build off of from there. I've always sung, which is weird because nobody else in my family does. I'm the only singer in the family. So I've always sung with my parents,
even like a distant Norwegian grandfather. No,
not that we know of. My grandmother always said that I got it from her, but I have absolutely no idea.
Right. Wow.
So, So, and I picked up music really quick. My parents had, like cassette tapes in the car back when cassette tapes were a thing, cassette tapes in the car. And I would memorize it within like a week, I would have all the songs memorized.
Wow.
And my parents were like, huh. So that's why they started looking into ways that they could, enhance my musical ability by getting me into a choir and getting me singing.
Sure.
So yeah.
Great. Okay.
So then after, after high school, after high school, I went to Arizona State University for college, auditioned for the music theater department, didn't make it.
Great.
They said no. So I was like, I'm just going to be a theater major. That's fine. I'm going to be a theater major. Probably one of the only people that has ever graduated from Arizona State, and I never did a show on campus.
You're kidding.
It wasn't a requirement at the time. It is now, but it was never a requirement. So I never even did a show on campus. I did all of my work outside in community theater. And then by my senior year, I was working for Phoenix Theater, the professional equity theater that's in the Valley. And so I started working there doing shows, and that kind of just kickstarted more. And that's where I got my...
Which is so smart because, I mean, in many ways, because Phoenix Theater is, a theater that many people dream of working at. It's right in your backyard. You're getting these credits. You're working with these people. It's in a way, it's so much smarter than the average person who's just doing Little Women in their like black box in the back of the college.
Yeah. And I mean, and honestly, it was a great experience. I was working with professionals. They were bringing in, professionals from outside. So I was working with them, and a year after I graduated, I was doing a show and I was given an equity contract. So that's how I got my equity card, was working at the theater like a year and a half after I was given my equity show.
So then by the time you get to New York City, you already have your equity card. You set down your suitcases, your Thoroughly Modern Millie moment happens, but you're ready to tackle the world.
Correct. But before I came to New York, I went and worked in Japan for 3 years for Mickey Mouse.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about this part of
your life. So I actually was doing Into the Woods at Phoenix Theater. I came to New York over 4th of July to visit friends that I had done summer stock with the summer before. Okay. So I came to New York to visit friends, was here for auditions, and I was like, well, there's an open call for Disney for cruise ship and for Tokyo. So let's just see what happens. I walked in, I sang. They were like, have you ever thought about going to Tokyo? And I was like, what now? No, but okay. And then I had a call back the following October. My hair was bright red because I was doing Into the Woods. I was playing Jack. And so I flew over to LA first thing in the morning and then flew back for that show that night. And I ended up going over and working, doing all the shows that a singer could do in Japan at the time.
Wow. For years.
On and off for 3 years. Yeah. Wow. And that's eventually where I met my wife.
Yeah.
On my final contract.
And so then I'm trying to think the first time I met you, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so I've known your wife since high school. She was like my older sister. My first show was South Pacific. I played some made up role. She was Nellie Forbush. We love her. She's a star. She's great. Yes. But yeah, I hadn't seen her in years. She does her thing. I do my thing. We both know that we're in New York, but hadn't really reconnected. And I think I was with my girlfriend at the time, Lindsay, and we were trying to get lottery for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. It was pouring rain.
Yes.
And then suddenly the two of you are in there. And I was like, what? And we
all won the lottery and we all sat together in the box. Yeah.
And she was like, this is my husband, Nick. He's an actor. He's very talented. And I was like, this is hilarious. I love this.
So there we go.
There we are.
So then we moved to New York together and I've been here ever since. So did kind of the regional circuit for a year. And then it was about 6 years after we moved here that I finally booked my Broadway show.
Which was your Broadway debut was?
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Crazy.
At the Neil Simon Theater.
And this revival, because it came in from Canada, you didn't do it in Canada? I can't remember now.
No, so I didn't do it. So it was coming in from the Stratford Festival. So it went from Stratford to La Jolla Playhouse. And then from La Jolla, it was coming in. So when they were bringing in the show, they brought the entire cast from Canada and from La Jolla. So there were, and when I say there was, we did hold the record for the most Broadway debuts until Bring It On that season. Because we had 29 when we opened on Broadway, and then they beat us by like 3 because they had 32.
Yeah, it's all Canadians. That's right.
Yeah. But when I saw that it was coming in, my wife was looking at it and she's like, "You need to be seen for this." And I was like, "All right." So I wrote my agent, and she said, "Listen," she goes, "I don't think there's anything available. I'll find out." So then the casting notice came out And it was like the first kind of audition that I went to right after the new year.
Okay.
And they were only looking for 2 roles. They were looking for a swing, 2 male swings,
Okay.
1 male swing to then also be a principal cover. So you would cover the 10 ensemble tracks, and then you would cover Jesus, Judas, and Annas.
Sure.
And then the other male swing would cover 10 ensemble tracks and then cover Caiaphas, Herod, and Pilate. So I was like, my agent was like, I don't even know if I can get you an appointment. So I was like, fine. So I went to the open call, and I was the first.
You write up to an EPA, ECC, Equity Chorus Call.
I went to the EPA. I was
appointment.
Equity Principal Audition.
Yeah. Here we are.
I was the first person in the room at 9:30 that morning, and I sang Open Arms by Journey. And I did my thing where I have a high tenor voice. And so I got up to, I sang my high D at 9:30 in the morning. And it just happened that the music director was actually at the EPA, which is rare that usually they're only at chorus calls and things like that. So he was at and one thing led to another, and then like 5 or 6 callbacks later. And
I'm just picturing these people like at 9:30 setting down their coffee, like, all right, long day of auditions. And you walk in and you're like, so no, and it's just 9:32 a.m. and their hair is flowing backwards and their coffee over.
And it was, I mean, but that's what I did. Like because I did not wait tables when I was in the city. I was a temp. So I would get up and I would start standing in line at 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning, pounding the pavement to get in to sign up for the first appointment slot that I could. So I was warm, ready to go. So that way I could sing first and then go to work and work through lunch and stay a little bit late if I had to. Yeah. Because I've always sort of been a morning person. So I felt like that was a better thing for me to do rather than me try to do it on a lunch hour. And so crazy. Yeah. But as a temp, I was able to negotiate that.
And you booked this from an Equity open call, just 9:30 a.m. belting.
Yeah.
And you become the swing who covers the lead roles that sing very high.
Yeah. So I become, pretty much. Yeah. I become, the swing that covers all the ensemble along with then the 3 high singing roles in the show.
You had swung before? Had you ever swung?
I'd never swung before.
Right.
And we had a truncated rehearsal period because the entire company had done the show already.
Right.
So the first day I walk in, I don't know anybody. And they're like, great, we're going to take it from Simon's song. And I was like, what now? And everybody just starts singing. And I was like, okay. Luckily, the guy that they had hired, Matt Stokes, who they had hired to be the other swing, had swung one time before. He goes, this is how I did it. Whatever works for you, but here's what I'd recommend. And I was like, thank you. So I kind of just watched everything, learned everything that I could. And then we were about a week before going into tech. And the way that contracts work on Broadway is once your principal role is established in the show, you cannot go back into the ensemble at all.
That's right. This is right. Yeah.
And in the Stratford and La Jolla productions, High Priest Caiaphas and the High Priest Annas would start as the High Priests, but then would jump back into the ensemble to fill out chunks because they needed more people.
Sure.
Well, what ended up happening is that they lost that ability. So then we are a week and they were like, Nick, you're going to be in the show every night now. And I was like, so then I became a partial swing, which means that I have a track in the show every night.
Okay.
That can be easily cut or can be played by another swing, male or female. So my role would sometimes be played by a female swing if I was on for another track.
Sure.
Or if need be, it could be completely cut from the show and it would just kind of be an empty hole, but people could fill in an empty hole. So then that's what ended up happening.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
So almost right out of the gate, you're swinging. It's the 2, Judas and Jesus Christ, like vocally, are some of the craziest, balls to the wall singing for hours, running the marathon of the show. So your Broadway debut, you're in your track, right? And what you get to just before opening is the first time you go on for Jesus.
So they had given Matt and I an order to learn things, right? And I was the first cover for Jesus, and then Jeremy Kushner was also in the show. Jeremy was the first cover for Judas.
Okay.
And so I am been learning the show, learning the tracks, and watching everything I could backstage, standing in the wings, watching from the house when I could during tech, learning everything I could. I had a 13-pound notebook with scripts and drawings and diagrams. So
you call it the show Bible, but for Jesus Christ Superstar, I feel like it should definitely be called.
It truly was. It truly was. Yes. Sure. Yes. And when I was on the subway, it literally was like gung in the beginning.
We get to the Ephesians.
Yeah, true. Scene 2. So we get to the Saturday night after opening. In previews, we had been running on a Monday through Saturday schedule.
Okay.
So we had shows on Monday night through Saturday. And then after opening, they were switching to a regular Tuesday through Sunday schedule. So we had gone Monday through Saturday. This was the last day of the week. And we had opened on a Thursday night. Josh Young had come down who was playing Judas at the time, had come down with a respiratory infection.
Sure.
Which completely, he could not sing, had asthma attacks, the whole 9 yards. So he got through opening and then was just out of the building. Didn't even, Jeremy Kushner was in the role because he had been doing the role. He had done the La Jolla production. He had done Stratford. So he knew what he was doing.
Sure.
So I'm just watching backstage, making sure I'm watching his traffic. And Jeremy goes running down the escape stairs on the Saturday matinee and he sprains his ankle backstage. And I'm standing next to the dance captain and he looks at me and he goes, "You need to go downstairs and put on the costume." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what now?" So I ran downstairs and I walk into wardrobe and they're like, "Hey, Nick, what's up?" And I'm like, "I need a Judas costume right now. Jeremy just sprained his ankle." And it was like just a flurry of fabric happened. And all of a sudden I was dressed. I came back upstairs. Jeremy finished that show. He was like, he took Advil. He's like, "Get my shoe on. Let me finish the show." So he finished the show, modifying what he needed to modify. This is the matinee on a Saturday. So then they come to me in the in-between because now they have to take Jeremy to the hospital and make sure his ankle's not broken.
Right.
Because, it was swollen. It was like 3 times the size. So they come to me and they're like, "So what do you think? What do you think? You think you could do it?" Now, granted, we had a truncated rehearsal period and everything. So I had sung through the show one time as Judas. I hadn't even had a blocking rehearsal. I had never walked the stage for Judas. I had nothing. They hadn't even put me through a costume fitting at this point. So I was like, "How early can I get on stage?" And they're like, "Well, you have to go to dinner because we have to clean, but you can be back. We can give you 45 minutes before crew comes in because at that point we have to have you climb the proscenium," which Judas does for the hanging. "You have to carry fire. We have to get you into a costume fitting. You have to jump off the set and swing from the set." So I had a list of things that I had to do technically that they had to put me through in order to put me on that night. And we have to do a mic check for you because we really don't know what you sound like. And we have to set levels.
And is there... Is there ever safety? Is there ever I don't know that I should do this? Is anyone maybe we shouldn't do this? No, it's just we're doing this. You'll be fine. We'll shove you with love into the right spots.
And it was one of those things where I was like, I had been working as hard as I could to make sure I was prepared because I wasn't on in every single scene.
Yeah.
For the ensemble, I was not in any group numbers that the apostles were in. Right. Because
it's you for cassette tapes in your car. You listen to it once and you're off book. So
I know the show. I know it well. I've been singing it since I was, in high school. So I'm like, I know what I'm doing. It's just making sure that I don't set anybody on fire or run into anybody. But there were so many safety precautions in place that they're like, we know that you will be fine as long as you feel like you can do it. Because at this point, you're the only one that can. And it was sold out. So I said, "Sure, let's go." So I went and I grabbed a sandwich. I walked into Starbucks to meet Christy, and she came in. She just come from a class, and I was just kind of like this look on her. And she's like telling me the story about class, and she's like, "What is going on?" I'm like, I think I'm going on for Judas tonight." And she goes, "I'm sorry, you're what now?" So we made all the phone calls that we could to family and friends, and I came back and I went on that night. And
what? You
what's going through your mind? Do you remember anything of this?
The things that I remember are, I remember hearing me singing, like, at that point it was such an out of body experience. Like, part of me, because I also covered both of them in, like, there's a fight at the end of the Last Supper that I was like, don't sing Jesus' lines. Just sing.
Just you mouthing his lines.
But I remember, like, hearing myself singing with that orchestra was incredible. I remember I remember swinging off the set and getting that and, like, landing it and being like, and I remember the end of Act 1, Judas is alone because the set was 2 levels and it had, like, this wrap balcony, and the entire ensemble at the end of Act 1 is standing on the balcony looking down at Judas as he's got the gold coins in his hands, and the curtain drops, the grand drape drops, and I dropped the coins, and all of them just started clapping for me because they were like, how are you doing this? And I remember just the love and the shove with love, just everybody coming up to me, and even they didn't even say things, they would just put a hand on me, or they would just be like, you got this. And just feeling that love from a company, knowing that I'm also trying to do my best. And honestly, they were like, we don't know how you did that. It was fantastic. You didn't really miss anything. Like, everything was fine. Congratulations, go out. And I blew my voice out that night.
Well, yeah,
there's no reason to hold it. I don't know how to sing the show 8 times a week, so I'm just going to sing it once.
Yeah.
I also knew I had Sunday and Monday off. I wasn't back in the show till Tuesday, so I was like, I'm going to sing.
And that audience had no idea what's happening in their lives.
I mean, honestly, they had no idea what was happening, but it was truly one of those, like, Broadway magical moments, to not only be making my Broadway debut, but then to make my Broadway principal debut in this last minute save of a show, no rehearsal, with everything that show had technically to make it work, and lyrics, and
And then once you've done that, really everything else pales in comparison. You're like, oh,
I mean, then you're like, I can get
Broadway with,
let's
like,
go.
17 seconds notice. Okay, so then you end up back. Your second Broadway show is Scandalous, where you end right back up at the Neil Simon.
Yep. I which was random. Like, we had gotten our closing notice, so again, I had heard about Scandalous. I went to the open call.
No, come on, you're kidding. This too.
I went to the open call for Scandalous because I was like, I need a job.
I'm dead. I'm dead inside.
So I went to the open call, and my agent called me, and she goes, "Did you go in for the show Scandalous?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, you have a callback." And I honestly didn't think I was going to book it, because I was like, well, there is something for me in it, because they were still writing the show. So my audition for that was, we want you to sing a traditional musical theater song. So I sang Stranger in Paradise from Kismet, and also a pop rock song. So then I sang Open Arms by Journey, because we don't know what this show's going to be, and we're writing it. So yeah, so I turned right back around, and I went right back into that theater. And, yeah. And, and that was a whole new experience, building a show from the ground up, and the first time that we ran the show with costumes, which was the night before we had an audience, it was like a Les Mis. It was 3 hours long. I had 28 costume changes. It was nuts. It looked like, the wardrobe people didn't even know what to do. But
it was 28 hours long. I think it's shortened down to 22 hours by the time I saw it. It had its moments. Kathy,
Caroline
Carmelo,
that tour divorce, working with that woman was just a dream. Yeah.
Jacob has a question about Kathy Lee. He says, any good stories from working with Kathy Lee as a Broadway writer?
So the thing I will say, I think Kathy Lee is probably one of the hardest working women that I really know. I mean, she would go and do the Today Show and then come to rehearsal every day with us until 5 or 6 o'clock. Wow. She took one day off a week. Other than that, she was in that room doing rewrites. She was with the cast. If she saw us out, she would buy us lunch. She would buy us dinner. She really, really took care of us, really wanted it to feel like a family. And, still, I have amazing friendships from that show because, we were just all in it together. And, I think that there was some beautiful moments in that show. I think she got maybe a little too close to it. It was really, she had been working on it for a very long time. And it's hard when you're in the middle of that to really continue to hold on to something like that and not be able to let it go. But
I think, that's every flop musical. You're like, well, how did it get to that place? and it's the same story every time. It's the writers have sat with this material for so long and they're so obsessed that they no longer can see the forest for the trees. They are so in that wood. And then it opens and the audience decides, and it's at that point, it's how do you overhaul and fix everything? I remember you speaking of the Neil Simon. I remember saying I had seen the show, and I think I saw you somewhere. How's the show going? And you said, well, we looked up at the mezzanine and there were like 10 people in the entire mezzanine.
Yeah. We knew, I mean, because also like the Simon is a pretty big house for Broadway. It's one of the bigger houses on Broadway. And so we had an inkling when we would come out on stage and we would turn around, because the beginning was ensemble members. We would turn around. We all had like this like line testimony about Amy. And we would turn around and we would be like looking up to the balcony. We'd be like, nobody's there. I'm just going to look at these people down here.
Play to the orchestra. Great.
Play to the orchestra. Great. But you know what? We had a lot of fun. We, and I mean, I got to work with George Hearn.
That's right.
He played her father.
That's right.
And the reason he did it was because Kathy Lee called him because they had worked together Putting It Together. And so she called him and said, will you please come out of retirement and do this show? So he would come into the male ensemble dressing room and just sit and talk with us. And it was like,
wow,
what
wild.
The stories that man had, you know what I mean, was incredible.
Right. Incredible. Okay. So then the next installment of your life feels like an Andrew Lloyd Webber installment of life, or
it is an Andrew Lloyd Webber installment.
Or I should say, 80s British musicals installment of your life.
Yeah,
I guess
80s British musicals with a hop into the circus. So I went and did so after Scandalous closed, I went and did a production of My Fair Lady regionally, came back to New York, and I was actually set to go out on the Evita National Tour.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I had booked the Evita National Tour. Then I was set to go out on that. And then I came back and they wanted to see me again for the Phantom Tour. Originally, they wanted to see me for Andre, one of the managers. And I was like, at the time, I was like, you know how old I look, right? Like, I know that I read.
Don't really sing. Like,
but okay, I'll go in for the managers. So 43 pages of material. And I went in and I sang, and I was in the middle of a reading at the time. I was like, great, thanks so much. I walk out of the room. I go to change because the reading is that afternoon, the presentation. Right. And Mary Sugarman comes running up to me. She goes, hey, can you come back in and sing for Raoul? And I was like, yeah. She's like, do you know it? And I'm like, I've been in for the Broadway show a few times. So I was like, yeah. So she's like, here's the material. So I went in and I sang. Great. I went to a callback. Great. And I booked the Phantom Tour, which was,
wow.
So Evita was a seated tour. Phantom was full production.
And so for those who are like, what does any of that jargon mean? CETA is touring engagement, touring agreement. It is the separate contract that is shorter stays, smaller houses. It's a subcontract that essentially pays us less, but there's other supposed perks. And it's a way to take some of the non-equity touring market and make it union, but not a full Lion King production contract.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So I made the decision.
Phantom is a better contract than the Evita contract.
Phantom was a better contract.
Yeah.
And also Phantom, because it was production and because of the size of the show, it was 2 week sit downs in every city.
Right.
Minimum. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to go out on Phantom. So I went out on Phantom and I was out there for 2.5 years with that show. Crazy. Which I can't believe I was out there for that long. But then I came back and then started auditioning again. I ended up becoming the press person. So shows on Broadway, there are all sorts of, I guess you want to say, like,
they're conferences. It's what I go to on my side of my life.
What's the word? Yes.
Which I didn't realize. Like, I'll go to a Student Youth Travel Association conference and I sit down and they're like, oh, the Broadway day is Thursday. And I was like, well, what do you mean the Broadway day? And they're like, all the Broadway shows come and do their press thing. And I thought, what a fun. And the first time I went, I was like, wait, I know that person. Hey, I didn't know that. This is a whole part of the business I didn't know existed.
And neither did I. So when I was leaving Phantom, I became the press person for the Finding Neverland tour. So I became their J.M. Barrie, I guess you can say. And I would go out and I would do season announcements for the different touring markets across the country. So I'd go in and I would sing a song from the show, and they'd be like, and hear from Finding Neverland, Nick Cartell, to sing from the show, to like,
even though you're not in the show and not doing the show.
none of it. And yet I would still have to do press for the show, talking about the show.
Great.
Like I had like a one sheet that I had to like memorize to talk about the show, and then I would go and do it.
You were like, when I am in Finding Neverland.
And they're like, oh, we can't wait to see you. I was like, we can't wait to be here. I'm not going to be here. Just to let you know, I'm not going to be here. But then also I went to an audition. There was a role opening up in Paramore, which was the Cirque du Soleil musical. So I went to an audition for that. And they were like, no, it's not no, but would you go and be our press person? So then I started doing the conventions as singing a song from Paramore. Because a lot of the time, if they are going to send somebody from the show, they don't want to necessarily do it on a day off because it taxes that person. They lose that person. If there's weather, if there's anything, it becomes an issue.
Right.
So they're like, we can pay somebody to go and represent the show who we trust. They learn what they need to from the show. We costume them, the whole 9 yards. So that's what I ended up doing. And then cut to like a few months later, a track opened up again in Paramore to be a standby for the 3 male principals in the show.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I know swinging, and I'm not in the show every night. I was a vacation cover. So meant that I was only there when other people were on vacation. So I would do, 3 weeks here, 3 weeks there. Anyway, so I became that vacation cover, and I went on and worked in Paramore. Everybody's like, oh, you worked with Cirque du Soleil? What trick? And I was like, I don't do the tricks. I don't do.
They tumble around me.
My leg stays at a comfortable 90 degrees. I don't go. I'm like, and that's the thing is like everything happens around you. And I remember my put in, like I had, the acrobat come up to me and he goes, he has to flip over your head and take off a top hat. And and he's like, all right, and he would come up to me and he's like, how tall? Okay. And I was like, what are you? Okay. And I knew that it was coming. And he goes, don't shake. And I was like, how are you going to tell me that right before you're going to do this? And he flipped over my head, and it was, I literally, I froze because I was like, I'm going to get hit. So, but it was the most terrifying moment.
You're like, how did you get decapitated at your put-in? You're like, well,
here's how it happened. At the Lyric Theater. So then I did Paramore.
And then Les Mis. Paramore. Go to Les Mis because it's a crazy part of your life. I feel like a lot of people, this is where you really.
I am known for, yeah.
Yeah, this is the people that I announced where Nick Cartell. Oh my gosh, I saw him at this. Oh, his Bring Him Home. Oh, so this feels like you really start to. And to me, it was like, oh, this kid. This is however many Broadway shows, but it feels like, oh, this is now. Bye, Nick. It was so nice to know you. If I ever do a live interview, please say yes.
Of course. Come on now.
Talk about this moment in your life. It's a dream role. How do you do it?
It is.
Tell me everything.
It is a dream role. So I had heard that there was a call. I had gone out to work with a group called the Broadway Boys, and a friend of mine on there, he was going in for a callback, and I hadn't even gotten an audition yet for it. And
you didn't go to the open call?
I didn't go to the open call for that. Because I also at the time was like, I'm not going to go back out on tour right now unless I am playing a principal role.
Sure.
For me, it isn't worth it at this point to leave the city to go on an ensemble track or an understudy. I'm like, if I'm going to move up, I have to make that decision. Yeah. So, I had said, how did it go? And he goes, well, it went fine, but apparently they're starting the search over because they can't find what they need. So they're gonna start looking again. So I called my agent and I said, can we see if they can get in? So I got an appointment for Jean Valjean, went in, sang from the show. They were like, great. I got called back like a week later to do another kind of sing work session.
Okay.
And to record just a VHS tape for the director who was in London.
Okay.
Then like 3 or 4 weeks go by, and we got the director, it's a no right now. Maybe, we just don't think he looks old enough. And I just got new headshots. I was like, send this to him. Now at the same time, I'm in callbacks for Love Never Dies tour.
Crazy.
Wow. So for Raoul, and then to cover the Phantom. So I go, all right, well, send him my headshot. I really, really feel like this could be a fit. I would love to go in and work with him. So
Sure.
I get another callback to go in and do another work session and to work it again, which I did. And they're like, yeah, there is something here. I think we can work with it a little bit. So they taped me again, sent it off. And then in the meantime, I go and have another callback for Love Never Dies. Then I get a final, what is supposed to be a work session for Les Mis, which when I walk in, it is the entire team, like a big HD like it looks like a television camera, but it's for Cameron. 2 points of lighting, the full team, producers, everybody. I sing from the show. I get called back in with Javert later in the afternoon to sing the confrontation together.
Gosh.
And then they're like, great, now it's just Cameron has to approve. So it's just a waiting game at this point.
And Cameron is Cameron McIntosh.
Cameron is Cameron McIntosh. I mean, he approves everybody in casting. Everybody comes across his desk. He has to give final stamp of approval for every performer in any of his shows. Wow. So I go, okay. So they're like, it could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 minutes. It could be they're like, but we should know soon because at this point, this was like, my final callback was in May and they were starting rehearsal in August. So I'm like, it's gotta be soon because they got to figure this out. Yeah. So in the meantime, I end up booking Love Never Dies, but as a Raoul Phantom understudy.
Okay.
And so I said no. I said I'm not going to do that at this point. Thank you so much. I would love the opportunity to do the show, but if it's not the role, unfortunately, I have to turn it down at this point.
Yeah. And
then I get another callback for Les Mis because they want me to work because it was co-directed. So there was James Powell and Lawrence Connor. So they want me to go in for Lawrence because Lawrence wasn't a part of any of the auditions because at the time he was busy with School of Rock and everything like that.
Right.
So I know that it's coming. And my mom, during all of this, had been battling ovarian cancer for at this point, it had been 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 or 5 years, 5 years. And so my dad called me on a Monday morning and said, listen, I don't think it's going to be much longer. And he goes, but I told them about everything. And they're like, we know you have this audition. You have to stay. You have to see this through because this could be a life-changing experience. It could be a life-changing moment. This is a dream role. We support you. You have to stay and see that through. And I was like, well, let me call. So they told me, I called and found out that the final callback was going to be on a Thursday. Right. And then she passed away the day before my final callback. So I wasn't able, I talked to her obviously through FaceTime and all of that to say my goodbyes, but I wasn't there, which was very, very hard. But at the same time, going in that room and singing and doing that with that weight, I think and that angel on my shoulder was truly the reason that I booked the show. That was on a Thursday. I flew to Arizona on Friday for everything. And Saturday morning, my agent called me and told me that I had booked it.
Gosh, man.
So yeah.
What a crazy week of your life.
It's one that I'll never forget. And, they're sitting in this pandemic and everything like that, the experiences with Les Mis, there's still flashes that I get about certain cities that I had because I did that role for 2.5 years. It was a lot, and I think I found such a great mix of strength and resolve and forgiveness, and I loved playing that character, and I really, really hope that I get to play that role again. I really do, because I feel like now with things that have happened in my life, there's so much more that I can bring to the role now that I would love to explore.
And so we're going to talk about vocally how you get through it, but put a pin in that. While we're here, this thing that happens in your life is the birth of your daughter.
That's right.
Which is when does it happen it happens pre-pandemic, during the pandemic? Now the timeline of dates to me, I don't remember.
During the pandemic.
Right.
So lockdown happened in March, and then she was supposed to be born April 21st. She came 3 weeks early.
Great.
She came April 2nd. I think she wants to say hi. If
Oh
that's
my
okay.
gosh. We'll call this a guest cameo appearance. Oh, oh, my heart, my heart, my heart. She's
Say
like,
hi.
what is this? Oh,
Yeah, I know.
this
That's the
face,
microphone. Yes,
this
that's the microphone.
face, your life.
And you clap.
I'm over here like making ornaments and you're making children. Like,
I
what have you been up to? I just made a child. Oh, I made an ornament. Does that count?
Yes.
She's also a soprano. Child
Yes,
soprano.
she's soprano. She's soprano. She also has a full belt. All right, I'm gonna hand her back to Mom.
Oh my gosh, the pass up. Look at
I know.
our youngest virtual Broadway tour guest so far, and we've had some pretty young guests.
True. I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so she was born, and it was actually really, it was a scary time, right? So not only is everything kind of exploding coronavirus wise, but then they make a rule within the hospitals here in New York City that there are no support people in the room for delivery.
Oh God.
And so then it became I won't even get to be there for the birth of my own daughter. I'll have to watch it on a Facebook screen because I can't go into the hospital.
Right.
So then it becomes the scramble to try and do we try to deliver in New Jersey where that's not the rule? Do we switch doctors? Do we then this became this whole thing. But then so she was born on a Thursday. Christy went into the hospital on Wednesday. The Saturday before, Governor Cuomo came out and said that's not right. They need at least one support person in the room. And so that came down on a Saturday. This is executive order. And then we went into the hospital on Wednesday. She was born Thursday morning. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now I had to leave. I wasn't able to be there for the recovery. So like after she was born, after we were out of the birthing suite, Christy went into recovery. I had to come home. And then I went back the next day to pick them up. And then we have been here ever since.
Yes.
So.
And what is it? I have a French bulldog, and that's hard enough. What is it like, being new parents, a new dad, navigating all of this as an emotional artist in a global pandemic where your entire industry is flatlined? Is there any, how have you been doing that?
Okay, so I will say that there is an incredible silver lining to the whole thing, is the fact that we have been with her entire life at this point.
Yeah.
We have been able to literally watch her grow up in front of us because we don't go anywhere and we're always together. But it's the family time that as an artist and as a working actor that I would never have that opportunity because I would be either going to auditions or knock on wood when everything is back up and running in a Broadway show. So I wouldn't be here at night to put her to sleep and to put her down and to do bath time and to do dinner time. And, and it truly has been a blessing that we have been able to be together. And I've been able to be here to support Christy during, her recovery and everything like that. But then also, Christy's also working from home. So we're able to do, music together classes over Zoom with her. We're able to, granted, listen, the reason why she turns on when she sees a screen is because that's how she sees everybody.
Right.
Yeah, it truly is. And so it's one of those things where I am so hopeful that everything will start turning around. And I feel like we are coming to kind of that corner. And I've been very lucky that I've been able to continue to teach during this entire pandemic. I came right back into my teaching job. So I teach for New York Film Academy in their music theater department. So I've been able to continue teaching, which is a huge blessing. And we make it work. And, on those times where she wakes up in the middle of the night, we're here. Yeah. And we don't have anything. We have to get up in the morning because we have to get up to do things, but everything's here. Yeah. So it truly is.
What a glorious silver lining.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Otherwise we'll go insane. Okay. One, because your voice is so glorious, and I'm going to encourage people, if you're watching or you're watching this on replay and you haven't seen you sing Bring Him Home in the rehearsal studio at New 42 for that first press interview, I watched it. I was like,
there's a Broadway.com performance.
Okay.
There's a bootleg out there.
Sure.
From the show.
Sure. If you haven't, it's I don't know if I want to say life changing, because I feel like I'm setting you up for I'm setting too high of a bar. But it's very good. So on the heels of that, my final question for you, being the vocalist that you are in these huge mammoth roles, my question, and also at the Lori Stories on Instagram, she says, do you do vocal exercises daily? If not, how often and for how long? And someone like you in a global pandemic where you aren't singing, heaven on their minds every morning at 9:30. How do you do that?
So when I'm in a show, like say Les Mis, right? In Les Mis, I warmed up every day except on my day off. That was it. And warm up for me includes a workout, because all of these muscles in here are connected to everything else in your body. Yeah. So I was very fortunate to work with Liz Kaplan Studios when I was on the road and before I went on the road, which really kind of changed a lot of the way that I looked at things vocally. Yeah. And it really helped to reinforce some things that now I continue to use. So it always starts for me with stretching. Then it goes into a full breathing exercise, tongue stretching, the whole thing before we even get into any singing whatsoever. On Les Mis, I would normally do 2 vocal warm-ups a day. Okay. Usually the first one would be something that would just warm up my falsetto lightly while I was in the shower. I'd start to play, and then I would just warm up in the steam of the shower. Then I would go through, get some lunch. And then later on in the afternoon, usually about 4:00, if a show was at 7:30, I'd warm up again at 4:00 in the afternoon, and then just keep my voice warm over that time by humming and buzzing and things like that. My warm up usually took between a half hour to 45 minutes of singing.
Wow.
There it is. And it's a warm up that I still use. Now I warm up and sing maybe once or twice a week. Yeah. So I'm not doing it as regularly. And if I was to go back into a show like Les Mis, I would have to sing every day because it is such a mammoth role, such a mammoth show that I would have to get my voice back up to where it was. I will say that by the end of my run, I probably was in the best vocal shape I've ever been in my life.
Sure.
I was exhausted.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Physically and mentally and all of that. But I truly was the techniques that they taught me were the things that kept me going for 2.5 years, 7 shows a week. Sometimes, because Valjean gets 1 show off a week for vocal health. Sure. Sometimes I didn't have that. Sometimes, if there were people out sick or people on vacation, I would have to do all 8 shows. And yet I still was able to do all 8 shows and sing it the way that I had sung it on Tuesday is the way that I sing it on Sunday night.
Come on.
Yeah.
Which, anything about that's not always the case. It's almost never the case.
That's not always the case.
Yes. You are.
But I will say that when Broadway comes back, get those tickets for that first couple nights.
Oh my God.
Because the roof is going to be blown off of theaters because everybody is so vocally recovered.
Yeah.
That it's going to be insane. It's going to be nuts.
Instagram, is that the best way? How should we follow you and do all of the things? Instagram
is great. Yep. At Nick Cartell. I have a website, nickcartell.com. Right. That's kind of the way I try to answer and get back to people as much as I can.
Sure. You're also a dad, so we'll cut you some slack if you don't.
I'm also a dad. So, if I don't get back to you right away, it's not that I am ignoring you or don't see your message. It's just I probably haven't slept.
Like I'm feeding my child. Yep, that sounds about right. You're incredible. Thank you for I love getting to know the full story of someone getting into this point. So congratulations and everything. Congratulations on
Thank you.
Your daughter and your life that you've built.
I have one story for you.
Sure.
And so usually a lot of the time at most Broadway theaters, everybody will go in and they'll sign underneath the dressing room stations.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Something that's fun. I believe that my dressing room station for Jesus Christ Superstar, because I was kind of in a back corner because I wasn't on all the time, I was a swing. And I looked up and I believe it's where the Dogs signed their signature when Annie played at the Alvin.
Oh, that's incredible.
There was a Sandy signature.
Which would not surprise me that the Dogs were in the dressing room that isn't near everyone else. So this is probably right. This is good. Oh, that's good.
At the Simon, there's dressing rooms on one side and then there's a tower on the other side. Sure. So for the men's ensemble for Jesus Christ Superstar, we were off on stage right in the upper area, and then everybody else was in the tower, and then I was on the other side when I did Scandalous. So
Incredible.
Yeah.
You and Sandy's you've both made it. You've arrived.
Yeah. At that point, I was like, if I'm here, here we go.
If I can make it as far as Sandy's made it, then I can make it anywhere.
We're good. We're good.
You're incredible. Thank you for spending a piece of your Saturday with us. You're a dream.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll see you guys soon, and my love to all of you. Bye. Bye. It goes without saying, he's an incredibly well-grounded human with the voice of an angel. And so it's been fun when I first met him, I heard him sing something and he was like, I'm thinking of singing this. And he sang something and I was like, what do you mean? That's what your voice sounds like? Well, none of us stand a chance. And so then to watch show after show after show, and then Valjean for years, you're like, well, duh. No one else can sing that like that all those times for all those years. You're killing it. Truly, if you don't know his voice, his work, if you don't know him as a human, go follow him on social media and go on YouTube. What else are you doing on this Saturday? Hanging out with me, and then go watch some YouTube videos. You should do it. As always, you can follow us at Broadway Up Close on our Instagram, has all the info, all of our fun facts, the rest of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. Facebook is, give us a like there. That has other kinds of little things and posts and stuff that we don't put on Instagram. So there's some cross-pollination, but a lot of different stuff. I'm going to give you a sneak peek at our souvenir that we're launching this week. We have a couple versions of it, but I'm giving you the most bare bones version. No one's seen it yet except you. So here is, we're doing a notebook series. My thoughts are that we have a lot of time to write our feelings of a global pandemic and our hopes for the future. So we're going to do a lot of writing. So we had sold notebooks in the past. I was never really obsessed with them. We used a company and it was just kind of generic. And I thought, we're not generic. And so these are all handmade. It's all hand cut. It is all hand glittered by yours truly. You're welcome. And so this is one of a set of, I think, four. I don't even know. 4 new notebooks that we have coming out. This looking the closest to what our original notebook was, but handmade and glittery and fancy. So that is not released yet. Don't go to our website and look for it because it's not out, but sometime in the next week or so, we will be launching those. So keep an eye out for that. As always, we are officially one day closer to Broadway. I love you all. Thank you for spending a piece of your time with me. On Monday, we head into week 35, which I can't believe that we're coming into the turn of the home stretch. So thank you. I hope you're having a glorious sunny weekend like we're having here. My love to you all, and officially one day closer to Broadway. Bye, you guys.